Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Tuesday, September 16th, a little after 6:30 at night, and this is our daily recap video for the two Ultra funds in YieldMax, ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, and SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund. If you go to the website, hover over our ETFs, and you've got your different choices: covered call ETFs, fund of funds, Ultra ETFs. That's where these two are held. A reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1, posting all things related to all the different ETFs that I cover and letting you know when videos are released. All right, we take a look big picture in the market today. ULTY was up just a little bit, 0.36%. We'll go through the individuals throughout. We did have I believe it was this fund. We'll check, but we added, I think we added Hims and Hers to this fund today, and then SLTY down again, having a rough go since inception. So basically, everything they've got went up. So not good when you're shorting it. All right, we'll start with ULTY. We sold some shares of AppLovin, but it was not the complete amount, 59 million worth. We've got 175 million in there. While we're here, we sold some Oklo too, but we've got 217 million in it, so this 25 million wasn't a big deal. And we bought, what's that, 1 million shares of Hims and Hers for 51 million. Forgot to put that. Okay, starting off with the options trades. AppLovin, we just adjusted the strike on our sold calls. Still kept it within the same week. Cost us $1.8 million because we had to go up to a higher strike. Hims and Hers, we bought the shares, so we've got to sell our calls to generate income, buy our puts to protect the shares. That's the collar strategy. Overall, it was a credit of $430,000. Oklo was up big. We had to pay a lot to close out these calls. We did roll them to next week, but only a portion of them. So the 4570 closed out and then sold for next week. 2700 closed out separately because that was how many 270,000 shares that were sold out of the fund. So we had to close out the options associated with them. That cost us $7.5 million. Open door, we're already adjusting our sold call strike price from 10.50 down to 10. That brought in another 240,000. And Rocket Lab adjusting our sold calls for this week from 56 down to 51. That brought in 273,000. So we had a couple of small credits to go with a couple of larger debits. Overall, it resulted in an $8.4 million debit on the option trading day. It's going to go with a drop in value as well, 14 million. We'll look at how the underlyings perform to get to that. Start off with a firm up a little over 0.5%. These 84s are already way in the money, 6.6%, and 91s are still 1.1% out of the money. AppLovin up 1.8%. The deeper in the money calls got closed and rolled. They still have 587.50s that are 2.7% in the money. Webull was down 0.75%. Their 1350 calls are 3.45% out of the money, and their 1350 puts, they've kind of got the same strike prices on the sold options, 3.45% in the money. Coinbase was up a little over 0.25%, still 2% out of the money on those 335s expiring Friday. Credo Technology, again, up a little over 0.25%. 2.6% in the money on the 160s and 0.3% out of the money on the 165s. CoreWeave was down 1.4%. They've got 115s that are 3.1% in the money. We can do a total right over here. Dry powder, we've got 607 million. That's the combination of the money in the government funds and the cash and other. First Solar was down 0.85% today. 210s and 182.50. Now, 210s are the calls that are sold, 2% out of the money, and $182.50 is the puts that are sold. They're 11% out of the money. Galaxy Digital, we don't own any shares. We just have a put spread. We've sold $27.50 puts. They're 13.6% out of the money. Robinhood was up 2.22%. Still 2.2% out of the money on those 120s. IonQ still going, 5.3% increase. Take a look at the run that they're on. I was just a week or two ago selling puts at $38, and now IonQ, where are you? It is at $62. Basically, almost in 1 week, up 42%. That's crazy. So our calls at 55 and 60 are 11.6 and 3.6% in the money. Lululemon, I believe that's a drop. We don't keep track of the change in market value because we don't own shares. So, but these 162.50 puts on this put spread are 0.1% in the money. So it's not terrible if it were to end that way. Not the end of the world. 16 cents in the money. Strategy was up almost 2.25%. That took their 332.50s into the money. They got 700 contracts there, 3 times as many at that 2,250 contracts at 340. They're still about 1.5% out of the money. Oklo up just a little, 0.18%. Didn't matter. They were already deep in the money on these 84s, so they closed and rolled them and their associated puts. They still have calls at 94 and 100 sold, 1.9% in the money and 4.3% out of the money. Open Door Technologies just got into them, and they're already dropping 6%. We did close and adjust some of these, but it was not a complete. It was only 30,000 shares. That's why we didn't put the orange there. So these are still in play, 17.7% out of the money. Palo Alto Networks, don't own any shares, just the credit put spread or put credit spread. Our 197.50s that we sold are 1.9% out of the money. So as long as this stays above 197.50, we'll win that trade. Palantir Technology down a little over 0.5%. Still 0.1% in the money on these 170s, and the 172.50s are 1.3% out of the money. Reddit up 1.16%. Their $262.50 calls are 1.5% in the money. Rigetti was up 4.1%. Took their 20s right at the money, and the $20.50. They're obviously 50 cents out of the money, which would be 2.5%. Rocket Lab was the big loser today, down over 12.5%, dropping the value by over $25 million. They closed and rolled their furthest out of the money calls. They still have 51s and 52s in play for this week, just about 8 and 10% out of the money. Rocket Companies down 1.6%. $22.50 calls expiring Friday are 8.4% out of the money. New Scale Power down 4.68%. Still 2% in the money on those 36.50s, and they dropped out of the money just slightly, 0.6% on those 37.50s, and then they have $40.50 calls sold that are 8.7% out of the money. Tesla, again, no shares, just a put credit spread where we sold the 410s. They're currently 2.7% out of the money. Unity Software was down 1.3%, still in the money on both sold calls. 44.50s and 45s, 3 and 2% in the money. And finally, Upstart up a little over 0.25%. 64s are 4.7% in the money. 67.50s are about 0.5% out of the money. So all those changes resulted in $14.3 million decrease in value. Now this was the odd part to that. So to drop in value of our overall holdings, as well as drop in, have a debit on our option trading, and yet the share price went up slightly. So that's not all that common. So big picture, maybe reasoning being for that, it was a small enough drop to where when it is, so when we look at this change in market value, it's really only in the shares. I'm not able to update the all the costs on every single option as we go. So on a slightly down day like this for the underlyings, all of the costs to close out all these options are going to get smaller, which will overall increase the value, big picture, the net assets. So that's probably what's taking place on a day like that. So, almost 3.3 billion with a B assets under management. Yesterday, the money started flowing back in again. Not started because we've been talking about it. It's been coming back in a little bit, but yesterday it was a 15 million share increase, bringing us up to 586,125,000 outstanding shares. Tomorrow is declaration day, so we will find out what we're getting. 9 cents, 10 cents. What do you think? Next, we will switch over to SLTY. We'll get through that quicker. Less trades, and even ULTY didn't have very many trades. So Bloom Energy Corp just bought the close 1,400 shares. I know that says contracts. That's for all these options. If it's the stock itself, it's shares. So not a full closeout, just a portion. So Bloom Energy again, we're going to go ahead and close out 14 contracts to go with the 1,400 shares that we sold, and then also adjusted our strikes on our sold puts. So with SLTY, everything is the opposite of ULTY as far as instead of buying shares and then protecting them with puts, we sell shares that we don't even have, so we go negative, and then we protect them with calls, and we sell puts to generate income. So all in all, that close and roll resulted in just about $12,000 credit. Lemonade closing and rolling, still within the same week on everything today. $10,000, almost $11,000 credit. Mara was about a $3,500 credit on that rolling of just the puts. RH, again, just adjusting the puts closer, brought in a credit of $5,100. And Symbiotics closing and adjusting the put strike closer to the money brought in $3,900. So on the trading day, it was a $35,000 credit. That's 2 trading day increases or credits in a row to go with 2 value drops in a row. 300,000 today. We take a look at the underlyings. I did forget to mark the biggest winners and biggest losers, but it's not hard because only one went down. So there's the biggest loser. That looks like the biggest winner. So let's get going. Astera Labs up 3.25%. So that's going to drop the value. You don't want shorted shares going up. Puts at 225 are still 5.7% out of the money. Applied Digital up 0.5%. Puts at 18 are 7.5% out of the money, and calls sold at 22 are 13% out of the money. Bloom Energy went up the most out of this fund, 9.36%. So that's going to hurt the most. Dropped our value by 87,000. I might have to double check that. Was it the calls they adjusted or the puts? Puts. So I highlighted the wrong thing. That should be orange. Not that. Okay, so those puts are no longer in play. There's a new strike price. They did sell calls as well. Almost 16% out of the money on those 85s. BitDeer Technology up 2.8%. Puts at 1550 are 5.3% out of the money. I did forget that Excel is not familiar with Circle Internet Group, so we have to put this one in manually. 134.81. It's a small increase, 0.5%. Puts at 126 are still 6.5% out of the money. Enphase Energy up 2.6%. Puts at 36.50 are 6.3% out of the money. GitLab up 0.4%, puts at 48.50 or 3.6% out of the money. Lemonade went up 1.1%. The puts were closed and adjusted to a closer strike. Mara Holdings up 7.94%. Again, that's going to hurt. Puts were adjusted, closed, and rolled to a different strike. There are also sold calls still in play, 8.3% out of the money. MP Material Corp's up just a fraction, 0.08% or 5 cents on a $66 stock. Puts are sold at 63. They're 4.5% out of the money. There's also calls sold at 74. They're 12% out of the money. And Nebius Group down 1.68% today. They're the biggest loser. Drop change in market value is going to actually increase to go along with that. 89.43 closing price, $86 put price. That's sold 3.8% out of the money. RH was up almost 3.5%. They closed and rolled the 210s that were pretty far out of the money. 255 calls are still in play, 10.6% out of the money. Symbotic up 0.43%. Again, puts were closed and rolled to a closer strike. And Tempest AI up 2.25%. Puts sold at 85 are 2.3% out of the money. Calls sold at 110 are 26+% out of the money. So that all resulted in, now this has updated since I input Circle. So $307,000. I'll come fix the formatting in a minute. And I forgot it also doesn't recognize SLTY, so we have to put that one in by hand as well. $43.99. Just keeps dropping. Maybe you should short SLTY. No changes yesterday in shares, still 275,000. So people are not, it's not catching on. People aren't buying into it, but they're not selling out of it either. 12.2 million is the assets under management as far as when the day started. So again, tomorrow will be declaration day for them as well. My guess was 60.5 cents. So we will see how close I was in tomorrow's video. All right, so that's all I have for you. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all the support. If you have not seen it yet, I put out a nice long video yesterday where I got to interview YieldMax's chief strategist, Mr. Michael Coe. It was a great interview, not on my part, on his part. Get a lot of good insight, a lot of understanding on how things work. I got some ULTY specific questions in there. We talked about Misty for a little bit, nothing major, but just all things YieldMax. So definitely make sure you go check this out. If you're a subscriber to my channel because you're into YieldMax, you're gonna want to watch that video. All right, I got a dad joke for you. Let's see. At the job interview, they asked me, "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" I said, "I think we'll still be using mirrors in 5 years." That's kind of dumb. All right, thank you. Have a good night. Good luck trading tomorrow. Catch you in the next video.